About her adventures as she wanted to say steward. She was a charter flight attendant, which sounded like an exciting life. We have her book in the library, and I think she has a few copies here. It's very exciting to see and hear
There's a whole bunch.
where she
And there's a salad waiting for her.
and how brave she was to go off on all these adventures by herself. I just don't know how you did it, Cynthia. She is considered a Los Altos resident, and she graduated from Foothill College and San Jose State. And I think you're going to be very delighted to hear her adventures as a charter flight attendant.
My name is McAlister, and I would like to thank Linda for inviting me to talk today. Okay, I would like to thank Linda Strongbaum for inviting me to speak today, and I would like to thank all of you for coming. I consider Los Altos my hometown because this is where I was brought up prior to beginning my airline career. These 14 years were some of the best years of my life. I saw countries, experienced cultures, and met people that would have been highly unlikely to do if I had flown for a commercial airline. People at home had difficulty understanding what I did for a living because I traveled everywhere and did a lot of refugee flights and college flights and things like that. And I was attending San Jose State University when I was 5, and I was assigned a nonfiction paper, so I wrote about the Hajj, which is a pilgrimage to Mecca. And now I didn't receive a very good grade. They put a note on top, the professor put a note on top saying, this is supposed to be nonfiction, not fiction. You didn't follow the rules. And I had to bring in documents that I really had. And in 1975, Tia was commissioned by the Nigerian Pilgrim Board to fly 81 round-trip flights from Kano, Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. And I flew one of those flights on my birthday, November 5th, 1975. And we flew into the African jungle. Now, set your watches back, or your clocks, 100 years. We landed in the African jungle and were limoed to huts. We stayed in mud grass huts in the African jungle in 1975. And we shared the huts with critters. They had all kinds of crawly things and things that fly. And they had dim light bulbs in the hut, probably so the bugs wouldn't be attracted or that we could see the bugs. We were 2 miles from the reception center, and there was one guy called Chopper, named Chopper, that we used to ride back and forth. There were probably 3 crews at the time in those huts, and we spent a lot of time running and screaming that first night. But there was no place to run to. You'd run out, and there was nothing there. We did have 2 guards, Nishi and Kumba, and we invited them in for a picnic one day. We took our food meals off the plane because we weren't going to eat them. And they came on in, and they sat down, and we had it all set up with what we call 7-in-1s and the entree. And they ate, and if there were bones, they'd take the bones and they'd throw them on the floor. And we really couldn't communicate too well with our guards because they didn't speak our language, we just used motions. And then we also didn't have a phone in these huts, or at least I didn't have a phone. Some did have a phone. And so creative minds got together, and what the captain would do was he'd buzz the huts on his way back from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, he'd fly low over our huts, and everything would shake and rattle, and it'd be a really loud noise, and that would be our wake-up. That was how we were told to go back to our hut, get our uniform on, and wait for a pickup for the airport. It was very bizarre. One flight attendant, Jackie, some of you might know her, she ushered a passenger back to the terminal in Africa and then came back to the airplane again. And as she was walking back to the airplane, she noticed that something was flying around her. And she thought, it was nighttime. Birds don't fly at night. And she was a little concerned, but then it went away, so she put it out of her mind and continued walking on. When she got close to the airplane, everybody was running and screaming and looking at her, and she's looking around like, what's going on? And then our representative, our TIA representative came out, and he had a clipboard, and he started batting her with his clipboard on the front of her uniform, and she still didn't know what was going on. And what had happened was a huge mob had adhered to the white polyester uniform, and the rep was trying to remove this huge insect from her outfit, and she earned the name Mothra after that, and looked up the moth at home and found out it was a vampire moth. When we got into Saudi Arabia, I'm going to go back. We went to the airport to pick up our passengers. Our passengers were situated on the dirt outside the terminal. They were not in the terminal. They were cooking their food. They were socializing. They were out there in their beautiful petite dresses, and the men had marks. Some had marks on their faces, cuts. And that was according to which tribe they belonged to. And our representative had to get their attention, and he had a whistle and a stick. And he'd blow his whistle, and people would look, they'd look over, and he'd say, come this way, come this way. He'd blow the whistle again, more would, start packing up, because they knew they were going to go on that plane. They'd never seen a plane at close range before, except for probably when the captain buzzed the hoods. And they came over and they gathered around, and he also had a stick that he banged on the ramp to get their attention if they started to wander off or whatever. And then he marched them around the plane 2 or 3 times until they were orderly in a single file line. And then up the ramp to the plane. And we're watching this odd experience. It was very different than being brought up in Los Altos, California. And the women sat in the back and the men sat in the front. The women wanted to sit with their husbands but couldn't because there were 3 seats on the right, 3 seats on the left on the CCA. And the Muslim religion states that you cannot sit with somebody who is not your wife. And the plane was completely full, so we had to put the men in the front and the women in the back. We had box lunches. They had chicken in the box lunches. They'd eat the chicken and they'd throw the bones on the aircraft floor. We tried to control this, but there's really nothing we could do about it. And they opened the Coke bottles that we placed in the seat pockets and back in front of them with their teeth and tossed that on the floor too. And then in flight, they had not seen a bathroom. They were from the bush country, and I'll show you pictures later. I have a slideshow here. They hadn't seen bathrooms, and they used to wash themselves too. And so we had a big puddle, a lake in the back by the bathrooms. And on landing, when the plane descended, there was like a river that flowed all the way to the front of the aircraft, and the flight attendants in their seats would raise their legs and the water just rolled by them. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing you can ever imagine. Some ladies went into the bathroom and they were scared because they saw the reflection. They had never seen their reflection before. So there was a lot of screaming going on in the plane as well. Okay. So we're on our way to Saudi Arabia, and then they get off, and they either take a bus or walk some of the way. It's 40 miles to their holy land, to Mecca. Now, I think that okay. I went to the reunion just about 6 months ago, and I wrote a poem for the reunion. And this is the poem that I wrote. At 21 years old, our lives were quite grand due to Transamerica Airlines dispatching us to foreign lands. Eager to travel, jubilant and aware, we lived for the unforgettable experiences, although our minds were not always there, jet lag. I'd scratch down a note when an experience seemed bizarre. I'd type the notes that were relevant and stash them in my bag. We'd be gone sometimes for weeks on end, crisscrossing over the ocean's floor. I don't know how we did it. 24-hour days were the norm. But when the aircraft touched down, a second wind would envelop some of us, and our missions were to explore. Inclement weather didn't deter us, nor did exhaustion or fear of the unknown. Off we'd go exploring, hotel matches in my hand. I'd stash the matches in my purse in case I forgot where I am. Thank you. I'm going to start the slideshow now and explain some of these unusual things. The picture you see up there now are some of our passengers. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, they came in full costume. And I was attending San Jose State University, like I said. And my teacher now knew that I was a flight attendant and had unusual flights. So I told her the truth when I was not going to be in class. And I told her, dear professor, so-and-so, I have to take Snow White and the Seventh Dwarf to New York to continue their trip on to London. And she would laugh. And, okay, a little bigger? Oh, a little bigger. No, I can't. Okay, now okay, now this is our graduating class. We had gloves, notice, and very, very short skirts. Our skirts were shorter than our arms were long. And we had hats too, but nobody wore the hats. Now, the first row, you can see the TIA, Transamerica Airlines logo. It's 4 from the left and 4 from the right on the first line. And then to the right of that is a suitcase that was banged in. Now, these are American, can you hear me? Is everything okay? Use the mic, please. Okay. These are American Tourister suitcases, the same ones that were thrown around by monkeys on the TV commercials. But ours still came out like that. Oh, first class service. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. We advertised first class service, and we did an excellent job. And there were great sunsets, as you can see there in the picture. We could see the northern lights, and it was quite an experience. Now, these are some pictures of the Hajj. You can see in the lower left, the men sitting in the front of the aircraft and the women sitting in the back. The man in the top left was at the reception center. He slept there on a blanket on the ground with his wares. He sold this, that, and the other, lots of baskets and skins and different things to the flight attendants. And the picture on the right is are the passengers in the dirt field that I told you about, cooking and talking before boarding the aircraft. You can see on the left is another passenger that we had on the aircraft. Some of them minded if you took their picture. You always had to ask them because there was some people thought that your soul would leave you if you took their picture, so you had to be careful and ask before you took pictures. The picture on the right is one of our guards. Chopper, or one bike, is behind him, and then the limo to the limo car is behind also, and that is our hut that we stayed in for 26 days. And these are some more pictures of Africa and the people. And also our Super 73. That was a DC-8 73 remodeled. You can see the interior of the plane. 3 seats on the left, 3 seats on the right. And we also did refugee flights. These are some of the children for the refugee flights. And these small children would be fascinated by the movies. We didn't have sound because we didn't have headsets, but they could see the cartoons and whatever we had up there, and they had never seen that kind of thing before. This is from Vietnam in 1979. There were more children to the row than probably should have been there. There were 3 oxygen masks, or 4 oxygen masks above each row of seats. The refugee flights from Hong Kong to the United States in 1979, 4 to a row. Okay, many passengers looked like children, but they were the parents. A nurse gave all passengers Dramamine before takeoff, but many got sick anyway. No headsets, so no sound. They'd never seen ice before. We served Cokes with ice. And they were fascinated, and they drink your Coke and they pick it up and they put it on their skin. And they put it on other people and they jump. And then they come to the back and ask for more Coke because when they got the Coke, they got the ice. And we figured that out, and so we just gave them the ice after a while. Now, there was a hygiene problem because a lot of these refugees did not have diapers. Flight attendants handed out the diapers. And moms put them on, but we never knew whether or not the moms had taken them off again because they were wrapped in towels. Now you can see that the seats are not covered, but after this flight, they were covered in plastic. This is a picture of Hong Kong. The bottom picture is Aberdeen. We did a lot of flights to Hong Kong. And this particular day, there were a group of us, and we'd been out early in the morning to late, and we were tired. And in Hong Kong, the taxis were red Datsuns, and they weren't marked taxis. And none would stop for us. We'd be waiting in a group, waving our arms, stop, we need to get back to Kowloon, because that's where we were staying. And none would stop, so we devised a plan. We stayed at a light, we just gathered there, and we waited until another red Datsun stopped at the light. And then we ran over to the Datsun, and we opened the door and said, "Take us to the Star Ferry." And then we climbed in, and the driver took us to the Star Ferry. And when we got there, we found out, when we tried to pay him, that he was not a taxi. That's probably a story he's told for many years. He was hijacked by 4 flight attendants. Now, the picture in the upper right is a friend, Marilyn DeMann, and it was her birthday, and we celebrated birthday. I ordered her a cake in Tokyo. We took a train to Tokyo with the crew, and I ordered her a cake. The cake was the size of a small grapefruit, and we had to cut it in 14 pieces. So each of us got about 2 tablespoons of cake. And now here in Tokyo, Japan, I went through 2 strikes. The first strike, the captain got us home on a C5. He pulled strings and got the crew home. And the way we boarded that C5 was through the back. There were no windows. We sat backwards. And the C5 filled with condensation on takeoff. Also, if you did not buy a meal inside the base, you had no food for the probably 10 hours flight. So the second time I was in Yokota also during the strike. Only this time I had to get my own way home. But instead of leaving just 2 hours before the flight, I chose to leave about 5 hours before the flight and went shopping. And what you see in the center, the cartoon that I had drawn by Ron Gonzalez at San Jose State University Art Department, he drew this, and I had purchased a clay cooker that must have weighed 300 pounds. I got everything I ever wanted in case I never came back again. Okay, now this is in Kadena, Okinawa. Some of our passengers were military, as you well know, and these were SR-71 passengers that invited us to see the base and see the SR-71 Blackbird. It flies so high, it was a new plane then, but it flies so high that they had to wear spacesuits. They put me in one of these spacesuits, which zips up the back. It started to get hot, and I started to get concerned. And then they put the helmet on, and it snaps down. You can't move. You're like a Pillsbury Doughboy. You're stuck there. And I said, "Get me out of here." And they did, really, really, really quickly. And they told me that if I had just waited a little bit longer, they would have sat me down in the chair where they have the air hoses hooked up to you, so the air circulates throughout the suit. Okay, now this is in Panmunjom, Camp Kitty Hawk. I looked on the computer and Camp Kitty Hawk doesn't exist anymore. It's something else. But I took a picture and I remembered it as Camp Kitty Hawk, so I looked at my pictures. Names change all the time. And in the center where the armed truce is, you'll see a picture. It says the monastery, home of the Merry Mad Monks. I asked what that meant, and they said, only men are here, there are no women, and none are assigned, he said, and that the merriest monk of all is the one who gets to go home. Now here's the Philippines. We shopped and shopped and shopped along the strip of Clark Air Force Base, brought back so many things. Baskets, shells, hats. Flight attendants' homes were different than other people's homes. We get python skins in Africa and Ouagadougou and the Benin Republic and all these odd places. And we get baskets and shells in the Philippines, along with monkey paws and other things, and things made. It was amazing. I'm going to move on because I think we're okay. Okay. On the list of names there, you'll see that you see on this picture include my paternal grandfather, Swenson, Lyman K., captain of the U.S.A. Juneau, light cruiser. This is in Manila, the National Cemetery in Manila. The Juneau was a light cruiser. My grandfather was Danish, and the Danes spelled their last name with an O. And when he matriculated at the U.S. Naval Academy, they misspelled his name it's Danish is E, misspelled his name with an O, S-O-N, and changed him from a Dane to a Swede. I even got to take the sailors to my grandfather's namesake ship, the Lima Peru Swenson. Now, Diego Garcia was an all-men's island, and the soldiers that we took over there had a sense of humor. When we did the demo, we would say, take the safety card out of the seat pocket in front of you, and they all took it out and they held it up. And when we said, this is how you fasten your seatbelts, we heard all one big click. And it was funny. Also, when we pointed out the exits, they did the same thing. Forward exit, jet exit, and don't forget to look at the exit behind you. And they all do this. And you couldn't help but laugh, and which sometimes annoyed the commanding officer. The men would get off the plane when we landed, and they'd go into the terminal, and then the flight attendants could go in. By the plane, there were bleachers. The bleachers were filled with men. And when we walked down the ramp to the terminal, they would cheer and whistle and take pictures with flash and without flash. And it was hysterical. They were waiting for us. Okay, top left, those were some of our passengers. Those are military men in full combat gear. We took them to various places around the world for training. They brought their guns, long guns that were placed against the fuselage. The pins were taken out and given to the commanding officer, and he kept them in a pouch until they arrived. In the beginning in 1972, when they boarded, They went right to the back of the plane and filled the back seats and went forward. There were no families, there was no liquor, it was very quiet and peaceful, and people loved those flights. Flight attendants loved those flights. And then later in the 70s, families got to board, and there was liquor, and nobody took the right seat. Everybody was all mixed up, and it was more difficult. But still, with military flights, there were only 220 passengers on the DC-8, and that's in relation to regular charter flight, which was 254 passengers, sometimes 256. This is in Greece. The caryatids you see in the top right corner aren't the same caryatids that are there now in Greece. They've taken these down and put them in the National Greek Museum. Now they're only replicas. You don't have the freedom to walk around the Acropolis like you used to in Greece. They have trails. Things have changed. This is Lima Peru. The crew borrowed a van from the hotel to go to the beach, which we did quite often. We came back to the car after dusk, and we noticed that we had a flat tire. Well, that's not usually a problem, but this particular place, at this particular time, there was a curfew. And we didn't have a problem getting back to the city, but when we got to the city, probably about a mile or maybe two, an army tank came from around the corner and started following us from behind, his cannon facing our car. Everybody ducked, except the driver. But we got back. They didn't contact us. They didn't try to communicate at all. We just got out of the car, went into the hotel, and they never heard from us again. Okay. Holy charter flight. Okay, each year first of all, I'm going to talk about the manual revision. Each year we go through recurrent training, 9 to 5 for 3 days usually, sometimes more if we had a new aircraft. We get a manual revision on a regular basis and need to place it in our manuals, the update. Safety was of major importance. The article in the center is about our transporting 200 Roman Catholic pilgrims to Lourdes, France. This is a picture of our Okay. Okay. Lower left. The lower left, you see a big ship and a lady in the front. She's a flight attendant, and her name is Kathy. We traveled to Algeciras from Malaga. We were going to take a boat to Morocco. And you'll need to read my book to find out what happened. So much to say, so little time. Okay. Paris, $959 round trip. This was a regular flight. This is a conversation with the TIA rep that I had. Paris, you say? I'm going back to Paris? I just flew in from Paris. I've been up for over 24 hours. The reply was, a flight attendant went on sick leave, quit. You, as the most junior, must go back or risk losing your job. And so I flew back to Paris. Okay, 49 Gold Rush. We transported fans and team members to sporting events. We took the Oakland Raiders' Jim Plunkett to his games, and we took the 49ers' Joe Montana to his games along with fans. I know I was invited to one Super Bowl, but I didn't go. I don't know why. And one of the times we took a team to the game, they got there late. Okay. Oh, the Sam Houston. We brought some sailors to where they were going, and they were going to board the U.S.A. Sam Houston. And the passengers invited us to go too, so we went. And the crew went, the whole crew. And the U.S.S. Sam Houston had a bit of a problem when we were in the galley. Lights flashed, horns sounded, and steel doors closed. We all looked at each other, and then one of the sailors said, "Don't worry, we just lost ship-to-shore connection." And this happened and that happened. We thought, oh my gosh, we're off to sea. Okay. Female flight attendants were called stewardesses when I started flying. This is the way the world sees stewardesses. Why is a Fresno sticker stuck to her suitcase? Funny. Okay. Upper right, buying gold along the boat, White Rock, in the Philippines. This was outside Subic Bay, Air Force Base. The base was closed. And they purported to have gold that was for less money. That's another very interesting story, but you'll have to buy my book to figure it out. Okay, Bill? Upper right, me dressed in the obligatory black cape that will cover my head before I enter this Muslim church. Foot washing is also necessary. Tia was talking about going out of business, and some crew members used tape to write this on the aircraft wall. You can see my father's Navy wings pinned under my Tia wings. Okay. This is an example of some of our uniforms. The first uniform is upper left. The last uniform is with my husband on the right. The bottom uniform is our Haji uniform, and that's what Linda put on the postcards.
I took that picture. I want you to.
You did?
I didn't put it in the book, but I took that.
Okay. You can see a guy in the back with his hands over his face. He was afraid that his soul would leave his body. We had no idea he was there, or we wouldn't have taken the picture. Tia hosted occasional picnics in the Oakland area. Camaraderie was important to the Transamerica Company. Is it the last one? Okay. Okay, we also flew Aramco flights to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, all first class on a 747. Oakland, Houston, Amsterdam. Then we had a crew change in Amsterdam, and they flew to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. There were only 120 passengers on this flight. And I was so enthralled in flying for Tia, I lost myself in where I was on many occasions. Oh, I'm standing by the Niger River while in Africa. A crocodile could have grabbed me from behind. I was so frozen in the moment, not thinking that hungry bears might also be watching me catch the salmon when I was outside in Anchorage, Alaska, watching the salmon go downstream. But upstream, they were going. They were swimming. Unaware of all that was around me, I get a crew alert and say to Bill, my husband, I'm going to Ouagadougou. And he replied, where's Ouagadougou? I'd say somewhere in Africa. They didn't have computers then. It was hard to look things up. How bizarre. After visiting all these countries that have red stars on this map, I know that the U.S.A. is the best place in the world to live. If you have questions or would like to look at some of my memorabilia or purchase one of my books to hear the full story and many more, there are 60 sub-chapters, and a lot of the flight attendants are here today and can attest to them. Thank you all for coming today, and a special thank you to my family who has helped me with this project. Bye-bye.
It covers 3 or 4 chapters. Getting her wedding day. Yes, getting many fittings. Thank you, Cynthia, for coming. And you do need to get her book. I can't believe the bugs and the places. Raise your hand if you are one of those flight attendants so everybody can come and ask you questions. Raise your hand. There's a whole group of you that have just as exciting stories and people would love to ask you questions. I invite you to come and look at our library and check out our table about our CSLA organization. Thank you. I know.